So, fellas, brothers in business, talk us through that. What's that dynamic like?
I can start that one off. So it started really, well, 10 years ago. Well, I suppose it really started when we were born, to be fair. That we've always been really friendly with each other and really got on. Loved each other to bits, but there's always been an air of competition to everything that we've ever done, whether it's been sport, whether it's ended up being, sport and business, the main two, really. How we look.
Yeah. So for the viewers then, which one's older?
I'm the older one.
Yeah.
I know who thinks they're older.
On
paper.
Our parents have always given us this fair equality to the way that we've been raised, and it's been a really good way for both of us to grow up as brothers, because there's only 18 months gap between us.
Yeah.
So 29, 30, it's one of those things where at that age between two brothers is great dynamic, because you can be equally best friends with each other, but
Absolutely.
At the same time there is that, certainly from my aspect, the younger brother mindset where you're chomping at the heels, trying to prove yourself, trying to escape the shadow of your older brother.
So there is a shadow.
Oh, he's really been chomping.
There was a shadow.
You've got your pool of mates, but the reality, you've got a combined pool of mates.
He blended into my group of friends very early.
You can see where this is going straight away.
Yeah. I came home one day and he was playing Xbox with one of my friends. I was at work all day, came home, and he's in my bedroom playing FIFA.
They've coined me they've coined me the better Barker. The better Barker.
Well,
that is how I've been coined.
Yeah, tell me about it. So then I used to have to beat him at FIFA, but there we go.
But it's a great dynamic for us, and our dad was really the instigator of both of us having this mindset where sharing is massively important, but make sure that there's also a healthy air of competition between the pair of you. And the one thing that he really instilled quite quickly was that if there was a job to be done, do it properly.
Yeah.
And he would often set us tasks to do together. And then just little things around the house, whether it was going and sweeping the drive, doing a job, putting up shelves, anything like that, that as a young boy, I think is so important for people to have that. Especially nowadays where most men are useless. They can barely even put up a set of self-packed furniture from IKEA.
Like a light bulb.
Yeah, it can't even screw on a light bulb. And we were taught really young that it's important to be able to have that foundation as a man.
Your dad's an engineer, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. He's that type of old school guy. You'll be able to relate to this, where they can fix anything, and rather than replace anything, and sometimes it's better to, they'll find a toolbox from the 60s that there's a specific tool in there that they go, I know just the thing, this will work, and we'll replace that. And that's been drilled into us. And the one thing that he did genuinely, when he'd come home from a hard day's work and there was a task that was set for us to be done, he would ask us, after going and looking at it and understanding the level of care and attention that we'd actually put into the job itself, he knew that we hadn't put the level of care and attention to it, and we hadn't done a good job. And he'd come in and sort of say, right, come with me. And he'd march us back outside. And
I'm laughing because
he'd point at the job, whether it's sweeping the drive, and he'd go, what do you think of that? And we go, well, we've done what you asked. He goes, have you? He goes, are you proud of that?
Is that the best you've got?
Yeah.
Are you proud of that work? And then when you sit there and ask yourself that question, you know in your heart that you aren't, and you know you've rushed, and you know you've taken a slapdash approach to the actual job that's been handed to you.
It's gutting listening to your dad say it.
100%.
You feel it in your soul.
It's so important, because so many people, if they were to actually self-reflect on the work that they produce daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, or even if it's in the relationship, personal friendships, if you were to actually self-reflect on the work that you do and say, are you proud of the performance? Are you proud of what you've done? So many people would look at it and really just probably be disappointed in the actual quality of work that they're putting out, or the way they speak to their friends, or the way they treat their relationships or partners. And we can all be so much better by just looking and self-reflecting on what we're producing on a daily basis. And because we had that drilled into us, where you get that gut-wrenching feeling of real disappointment, and your dad, every young boy wants their dad to be proud of them. And you're just looking at this disappointed face of sighs,
Just not enough.
disappointment,
And you have
and
to
you're
run
there
someone.
like it's like this. God, it's like this. It's crushing, and so you
I've
do
got a
the job
question,
again.
like, let's put a scenario. If you was given a task, not you, how would your face be looking at him behind Dad when you're getting the rollicking? Would you be goading him a little bit like going,
Yeah, there's definitely a bit. There was a bit of that to start with, but if I saw him really get the tears going, I would want to help. And I think that's the nice dynamic that we've kind of got. That the fundamental, beneath the surface of it all, we both just want each other to do better.
it's healthy
And there's a
competition.
healthy competition. Yeah, exactly. And
one
it's
in
probably
all.
similar with you.
One of the things I'd seen just quickly was I remember watching in the army and how they work things, the drill sergeant, and whether you've seen any of these dramatized TV shows where I think Band of Brothers is a good example. Another one is Hacksaw Ridge, where Vince Vaughn plays this really crass, harsh, tough drill sergeant that just absolutely tears into the cadets. And they do it on purpose. It's something where they've got an enemy, an allied enemy that they can all come together on and look to this drill sergeant as somebody that they all can hate on and all really sort of sink their teeth in and say, I hate that man. And it's rather than having that sort of dissension amongst the ranks with each other, they can create that brotherhood and that common enemy with the drill sergeant who they go is a real bastard. And I think, again, my dad subconsciously was doing something similar where me and Cody could both go, right, we'll do it through gritted teeth and think he's a real knob. But that brings us closer together then.
Of course it does. I think that the biggest thing, and it's very relatable because viewers will relate to this as well. I do, because obviously I've got a brother and we're both in business, and there's a lot of same positive kind of resent there in terms of like, that gruntle kind of like I need to do better kind of that bit of healthy competition.
Yeah.
But what you'll actually find is that kind of camaraderie and that bond that you get. So like, I'll say to my boys today, learning the lessons from my dad, and say, listen, today you'll hate me, but you'll thank me tomorrow. And that's a real lesson to learn, in that I don't have to love you. My job is to train you to be ready for what's next. You don't have to love what you are about to do, but it's like a necessity. You have to do these certain things. So like, get up, brush your teeth. We instill 5 key fundamentals to the boys in the morning. You get up, you get your breakfast. You go downstairs, you get yourself dressed, you do your teeth, face wash, things like that. Go do those things. Once you're prepared for the day, off you go. That's when it's their free time. And it's those little disciplines that you instill. But yeah, what you find, I'll get my little boys going, oh, have you done your bit? And they'll help each other because they know they'll about to get the rocket if they haven't done it. And it's that together bond, isn't it? You know, it doesn't matter where you are. Being a brother is like, it's weird, it's cliche to say, best mates for life, but it really, truly is.
Yeah, well, we've definitely had it. And when we've been told off or something's gone wrong, it's kind of, we do all then come together and it's a bit like, oh yeah, Dad's like X, Y, and Z. But the good thing about him was he always, if he really did pop off, and he did quite a lot sometimes, but you look back now and you're glad that he did.
You're grateful for it, yeah.
But he'd always come in and apologise in like the right way if he thought he'd gone too far. But he'd definitely let you stew a bit first to kind of
Is that
really...
when the belt came out, the slipper?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the one, or the belt. But yeah, no, he really did. And I think it teaches you as well how to then raise your own children, like you're saying. Is it similar for you with your dad as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course it is. And the viewers will be a bit like, ooh, what? But this is the real world. Like, today, I had a slap right back at legs by my parents. If I did something wrong, I was disciplined.
100%.
Get your nose up against the wall and you're going to be punished. You lose your PlayStation or whatever it may well be.
Yeah.
But you were punished. I had soap in my mouth as a kid for smoking. Like, and it went, and that taste, I can taste it today. So someone once said this to me, right? Today, the problem of today is the consequence isn't great enough.
Yeah.
When you let that sink in, you apply that principle to everything, and it takes you that step back and go, okay, that's probably real, that. So I'll sort of say to like the lads in the construction company, join us. When was the last time you had a splinter? They go, they're like baffled. You go, oh, okay. So when was the last time you had a near miss with the nail gun and it nearly hit your van? And they go, oh yeah, listen, last week, because the consequence is so great. They know. And it comes back down to lessons in life. And if we're not like disciplined from our parents, like our dad's very boom, 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 they've instilled that discipline, that fear, because you need to be a certain way in order to prevent certain situations.
Well, we remember that, wasn't it? Always from home. It was always a case of your mum is always the kind, caring, nurturing one of the family. And you can, as two young boys would, take the piss. And obviously up to a point where the only weapon and ammunition that mum has left in the gun is, I'm going to go and tell dad. And the switch up, in mindset and behaviour straight away is, it's literal like a rocket at the back. You're like, Jesus Christ, please no. And you're almost on hands and knees begging, please, for mercy. And the last thing you want is your dad to get home because you know what's going to happen. Yeah. And with that strong patriarch in the family where that sense of discipline and fear, not to an extent where it's so extreme that, you need to be cowering under the bed or you're scared of your dad. But as long as it's done from a position of love and you can at least understand that it's been done with the caveat of, you have done this and this is why I'm now having to do this. Yeah. It's not just an immediate response to something. It's a clear indication. And we used to have a 3-strike rule, didn't we? Yeah. It was one where I'm telling you one time and it was like, okay, kids, you push the boat a little bit and you test the water, see how far that line goes.
Yeah, and then push the boat all around. It's always the younger one.
Of course it is. But yeah, again, I'm always also the golden child as a younger brother. It's how it is, exactly. Yeah. But it was one of those things, you push that line a bit and then all of a sudden strike 2, he goes, I'm going to tell you one more time. You know what's going to happen. If you push it one more time, you know it's going to happen. Strike 3, like you said, you are up against the wall and you're getting a smack round the head. Yeah. But then that discipline, at the time, I remember thinking so vividly back then that I would never do that with my kids. I would never, make them feel how I feel now. But kids are they're so innocent in nature, but they're also, we were so young and naive and stupid, really. You know nothing about the real world. And you know nothing about what the actual incentive behind what he was trying to do, which is that discipline. And now, in a society where discipline is so limited, and the reaction or the reality of that discipline not being there is, as we went back and said at the start, poor quality of work, poor quality of relationships, poor quality of friendships, because that discipline isn't there. Things have gone to shit. And that is, honestly, I pinpoint, and whether it's consequence, which is tied in with the discipline, I genuinely feel for me that is at the root of 90% of our problems, both as a society and a country.
I mean, do you remember that? Because I was thinking the one real story that majorly stuck in my head when we were kids. And this is the one time Mum really did lose her shit.
Can't wait for this one.
And so basically, I don't know how old we were, but do you remember the Twister board? The game Twister.
I do remember.
So
this.
We were kids and we were probably about...
He's just quivered.
Yeah, we were probably about 9 and 7, something like, maybe a bit older. Can't quite remember the age. But I remember what happened. But Mum and Dad had gone out. It's probably one of the first times that we'd been left in the house on our own.
Right.
Got the game Twister out, obviously. And
why?
As you do. And you've got all your red colours, your yellow, your blue.
Just used to this point.
So just us two. So instead of leaving it as the normal game, we thought, what we'll do is we'll get a load of paint. Bearing in mind this is in the house with carpets.
Oh, you didn't.
And put paint on each of the squares or the circles. And then instead of actually really playing Twister, we sort of just slid across the board.
Oh, you didn't.
All onto the carpet, everywhere. Absolutely horrendous. Wow. So Mum's come back first. Didn't really need Dad at this point to come with a hammer of Thor. Oh, no. But yeah, she's come in, she's gone, what the fuck's going on in here? And she dragged us up them stairs into that shower. And I remember the scrapes on my back now with this bristled brush. Literally scraping us like down in the shower. And I was like, yeah, Probably shouldn't have done that.
And it's always your fault with the older brother.
Yeah, of course it was.
You should know better.
And we were slipping over all over the shop, so yeah, paint everywhere. Oh yeah, it was
How old were
bad.
you?
Like I say, probably about 9 and 7, something like that.
See, isn't
Maybe a
that
bit
funny?
older.
I don't remember the aftermath. I just remember the
You were just
activity.
getting cleaned. You were getting
Yeah, I was the one who actually, yeah, probably just me in the shower. Actually, he was fine.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
went to Disneyland.
You was misled.
Yeah, that's it.
I was always quick to. Well, no, actually, I was always the antagonistic one. Again, typical younger brother of the relationship. It's one where I was being honest, poking the bear and prodding him. And fortunately, patient as you are, it got to a point where sometimes, and we never really fought too much as kids, which I know as some brothers they do generally kind of have it out a little bit.
Yeah.
We never really fought too much, but what I always remembered was the scream down to mom, where typical brother, where he's like, "Tyler," really loud, and then dad would scream up and go, "What's going on up there?" And that straight away would get you to stop. But it's that fear of discipline that does. If it's there and it's instilled in you, it does make you auto-correct so quickly, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But if you've not got it, and we were just talking about in Birmingham in a minute with the current state of all the bin strikes and everything that is going on in Birmingham comes from this lack of discipline because people can't be bothered. They see all of this, bin men are on strike. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you are going to have to get off your arse, be a little bit more disciplined for this short period of time whilst we haven't got this specific service. Take the stuff to the landfill, to the tip yourself. Be a little more disciplined with how you use rubbish and how much you're storing, creating for a short period of time. But what happens instead? Absolute chaos. There is now 1,000 tons?
17,000 tons of waste.
That's a lot of shit in it.
Lying in the streets, and it's there because of the lack of discipline that people have got. Also, the lack of respect, which again I think stems from discipline and having that respect.
People making bad choices, isn't it? Really, without going down the route of the bin scenario. You've been disciplined. Definitely, like I have, with brothers and whatnot. I've actually got 2 brothers and the middle one, so I'm definitely the black sheep at family.
Oh, well, there you go.
Says it all, doesn't it? But obviously, with yourselves, you've been through that element of discipline. You've been that element of like, sort of, this is how you behave. You know the triggers that you can pull. You know the buttons that you should need to avoid pushing. There's all that rigmarole and whatnot. What's the dynamic like when, sort of like, you're in a situation and it's bad news? What are you two like together?
If it's a real shit's hit the fan.
Yeah.
I don't think we've not been anything too crazy off the top of my head. But I mean, we do come together, definitely.
I can think of a few.
Well, yeah, I can't think of quite a few actually. I can think of Greece. There's been one.
What happened in Greece?
We can go into it, I suppose. There was. I'll explain from my side. Now,
this is one of the times it came to blows.
We're a family that like a drink. We're a bit of a binge drinking family. Typical Brits. When we go hard. It's one of those things. Our parents into their 60s still love a party, and that's where we get it from. It's great.
Euros, World Cup. Rugby,
it's embedded into our culture, anything like that, and it's one that it's not unhealthy, but sometimes we work hard, play hard, and I think that's the sort of mindset that we have. And we'd gone on holiday, and sort of previous to that, I think there was a bit of animosity. We'd been working together. I think I've just moved into the managing director's role at the time of the business, so again there was that potential competition side coming out again, where I've got this real energy to push the business forward. And I think because we'd been working in our dad's shadow for so long and trying to create our own path within the business, I realised that the only way to do that was not through almost a give up and retreat from Carl. If we think of like a lion pack kind of thing, it needs to be taken and not just passed down, but in a way that's done through respect and through the hard work and the demonstration that you can do the job. So I'd really pushed past that and said, Dad, it's time to step aside, really. There was a bit of a mutiny on board, but it was done through the guise of, like you said, the hard work. And It demonstrated that I could do the job. And because Cody obviously had been there, I had found this sort of surge of energy, and I hadn't felt it from you just at this point. And it was really getting to me that it wasn't equal. That there wasn't this parallel energy that I'd got to sort of say, right, we got rid of the old man now. It's our time. Let's fight, shoot for the stars.
Yeah.
So we'd all gone on holiday. There was a bit of a back and forth, I think, at home with the girl as well. There's some involvement there, whereas a bit of a family betrayal, not from either of us, but from a friend of his that was no longer a friend, but it was all a bit up in the air. And I'm massive on family.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd gone for we'd gone as a family, few drinks. I'm a proper heavyweight drinker. I can drink
Can't
a
wait for
lot.
this to come out. It's coming, isn't it?
Can't wait for my side.
I must have been spiked.
Here we go.
Here we go.
But something at some point had turned me into this sort of feral demon where I'd turned red and my attention was set on this man right here. And it was one where I can only think of two things that were bugging me so much. The fact that somebody close to him had disrespected our family so much, and then also this energy towards pushing the business forward and really growing together and stepping up into this role. And I just weren't feeling it. And yeah, it came to blows through this whole sort of medium of, well, I don't know, this is where I don't remember this part.
Convenient, that one, isn't it?
It's convenient. So we're going to go back a little. So you were in a situation, you saw red mist, and then you hit him.
You tell me. I think so.
Well, yeah. So it's...
What went through your mind?
This is the thing, I don't know, but I can imagine what it was really was this level of what I felt was betrayal towards the family and what we stand for. And again, it's something that as brothers, and our dad came from a bigger family, and Barker, our surname, I feel it holds weight. I feel it's so important, again, certainly as men, that we do hold a value to our surnames.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so important, again, that, we talk about leaving legacies. Certainly as men, that's probably one of the only things that we can truly say. We work, we go out and we try our best to leave a legacy behind, whether it's with children, whether it's with a business, whether it's of those people that we've touched throughout our lives. And our name is the most valuable thing that we hold, that we own. And because there had been a disrespect to that.
What was the disrespect?
There was comments made about our parents, and there were comments made about sort of, to me, to him, a relationship that I'd had in the past, but mainly towards our parents. And I take that really personally because of the way that I see, certainly, dad as a patriarch, my mum as the loving sort of glue that holds us all together. And we've had a great, fortunate upbringing, and someone had really disrespected that. And
so how did you feel? You were aware that these comments had been made?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was, yeah.
And how did it make you feel?
Well, equally as shocked. It was a joke. It was really, really bad.
So, really bad, but you both reacted extremely differently.
yeah, I wasn't happy with the reaction that he had. And that's where it came to blows, because again, I was upset at the actual reality of the reaction that he had, where the friendship hadn't been immediately destroyed, stopped in its tracks then and there. There was further communications that had been had, and then again from that it was further post a discussion that we had where I really voiced my opinion as to how disappointed and upset I was, to the point where it was really, really, this person is blacklisted, that is no more. And then it was consistent communication still from this side. So again, I was like, how are you not feeling the same thing that I'm feeling when someone's done this to our family, which I think is, again, the most important thing in life. So how are you so blasé and nonchalant about this? I can, and just taken and accepted as sorry potentially as a way out. And because I hadn't seen the same reaction or had the same feeling, again, I've thought that as the first time I ever thought, are you here for the family? Like, what is your mindset? Where's your values? Where is your heart? What is your...
And that caused you to see red and react. But he did
was
nothing
definitely
With the
a delayed
influence-
reaction.
with the
put it that way.
influence of a bit of drink. I suppose.
Yeah, obviously, the drink's part and parcel of it. We're not going to go into like the he said, she said, kind of like who won and why does it fight. It's whatever, right? That's semantics. We're not bothered about that. I think the most important factor that comes in, and we can all relate to this, we're still talking personal, but this can happen in a business sense because that was clearly influenced. The reason or the motive for the question really was this is the real, this is the reality of the situation. So if you were business partners, not brothers, would you have hit him?
Probably not. Very likely not.
Why?
Well, you just haven't got that relationship, have you? You haven't got the
So
years.
you've earned the right to hit your brother.
Brilliant.
I think it's the years of understanding that and there is that saying, blood's thicker than water. And sometimes I think what we've overcome as family and what we've seen not only in our family, our external family, lessons we've learned from our dad, because he also worked with his dad. So we're a third generation business, and his brothers worked within the family as well. They completely betrayed that business. And so because we've learned through the osmosis of seeing it with our dad and the lessons he's instilled, I think almost there's probably nothing that would ever come between us, whether it was blows, short of murder, and even then it depends who it was. I've got his back and he's got
the other story
mine.
what happened after.
Yeah, guy's gone. No one's speaking anymore.
I did my dues in the end.
I think that the honesty is betrayal. You felt betrayed, and that's ultimately why you reacted. How did you take it?
Well, at the point that it happened, so funnily enough, we've not fully discussed it like how he's just said it there.
Oh, this is
anyway,
good then.
so this is what I mean. So that element of it was never really discussed.
Why?
I suppose now I'll go from where we were because that probably happened. I don't know, at least a couple of months prior to the actual incident.
Yeah.
So we'd obviously gone on holiday, having a laugh. We'd found this amazing bar which had like this like sea view. It was all built into the rocks of a cave. And we'd started off as well. There was like a Michael Jackson. Was it Michael Jackson? There was someone doing it, like a tribute act.
Yeah.
So there's all that going on. So that was really, really cool. And again, stayed the four of us all together. We managed to get into this place. It was like, you need to pay like €50 each. It was like 200 odd euros. Came back. And then we got re-queued. And then when they asked for the money, we'd like waved at the guy behind the bar and said, yeah, we spoke to him early. He said we can come in. He was like, okay. We spoke to him and he let us just straight through. And we didn't have to pay in the end, so it was like hilarious. But we got in, having shots, having drinks. And then that's when the red mist descended. And you were just all over the shop. To be fair, I actually haven't seen him really like that.
Yeah.
Probably ever. Mate, I can't think of another occasion where I've seen him really stumbling all over the place.
Okay.
So at that point, Mum and Dad had kind of gone and they'd left. And I was then just looking after him, just making sure he was okay. So he's kind of like glasses were being dropped and I was just like, Ty, like, come on, like, you need to be careful here. He was like sort of starting on other people.
Yeah.
And it was just like an absolute car crash.
Yeah.
So I was like, had him pretty much his arm over my shoulder, like walking him up. Because again, it's all cliffs and you're literally over like the sea.
The danger right now
It's
is
like,
ridiculous.
it's pretty serious stuff. So I'm like, right, I'll stand seaside and
So
you can
you've
go.
sobered up.
So
and
I'm
you're
like,
not bothered.
yeah. And so then we've got to the point where we've got up and outside because we pretty much got kicked out.
Yeah.
I did consider staying, but I thought better not.
Ta-da.
So yeah, got outside, and then I don't even know why it sort of happened, but he just kind of continued. I think he thought that I was actually not helping him and trying to like mug him up because I was saying you've been an idiot, you need to sober up, and so I was kind of having a bit of a go, like, but from passion, and like trying to help him out. And then just out of nowhere, just sort of stood up, like, or just kind of came to a bit, and almost like a robot, it just started coming at me. And like, obviously, I was a bit like, what's going on? Like, I'm trying to help you here. And yeah, he came towards me. He's like, come on, put your hands up. And I'm like, Tyler, I'm not fighting you. Like, what are you on about?
Yeah.
You know who'd win.
And then, yeah, just literally just punched me across the face. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm trying to help you here. And then he's like got me on, like trying to get me on the floor, and like it was just horrendous. And then and I'm like, I'm not going to fight him, especially when he's in this state.
Yeah.
So he probably would win at that point, even but anyway. But just was like, I'm just having to leave the situation. So I ended up even having to jump in some random person's garden who had like a low fence, and just was like, leave it. So then called my mate, like my best friend, and was like, obviously really upset because that hasn't happened in, well, properly ever, but in years, definitely. And I was like, I need to go and find him still, because he's still absolutely off his tree. And he's like, and like my friend's on the phone going, just, I think you better leave him. I'm like, no, I can't leave him. Like, I need to find him. So I'm like going down the road, just looking everywhere, trying to find, like, I said, oh, have you seen this person? Nothing. So then I just had to just be like, I looked for like a good hour. And then I just had to just book an Uber. And in the end, because I just couldn't do anything else, get back to the hotel, hoping that at least he'd gone back. I checked in the room, and and he wasn't there. So then I'm like, I've called like Dad, and I'm a bit so.
Now he started.
So I'm like, Dad, like, I don't know where the hell Tyler's gone. Like, he's not answering his phone. And so it was not great. But then the follow on to that story, in the morning, I've eventually gone into, the other room. Thankfully, seen him in there. So he's obviously got back. And you'd said you were like in hospital or something. So I don't know. And you had like a tag on your wrist from not being signed. So again, God knows what happened there.
It was very hangover-esque, I think, on my side. But it's one of those things. It does put a smile on my face, because it does echo the point that reality is, even through all of that, the way that he handles himself as an older brother is also something that is echoed in business as well. I will take the hit. I will take the sacrifice.
Well, that's what I did.
That's what I mean. No, I'm saying from your perspective, you are that person, you take it on the chin, and you'll, even through that, sort of go, do you know what? I'm still going to let you do what you need to do. And I think if there was two of me, it would be chaos. Now, this is where, again, sometimes at points I like to think where, if there was two of me, it would really surge forward and rocket, because it'd be, I've done this, and it's like, right, you're doing that, all right, I'm doing this, and I need to outperform, outcompete, and push and push and push. But the reality is, it'd probably end up in just complete catastrophe. Now, I don't know how you find it with your relationship with your brothers, and do you see a dynamic where one of you've got potentially two of very, I suppose, if like, let's say on the disc chart, two of you have like high D's, or one's maybe like a C. Like, where do you fall with your brothers? Do you have a different sort of category that you
Absolutely, of course, yeah. And this is quite interesting to get your dynamics out, because, actually, I'm like a people person, right? So I will 100% aim to please, and I will aim to ensure that the task gets dealt with and do it in a really good, candid way, and having a good time on the way. But I'm very like goal driven in terms of, let's do this, boom, 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 and I get passionate to that. So I am very much like you, very much, but I'm high yellow in that regards. Our Stevens of power is red, so he will see complete worse. So then I end up having to control myself so that I don't say certain things to then make him react. So whereas in your situation, you're quite reserved, methodical in that. You're like, no, this, we could come to blows, irrelevant who wins or not, but you will defer to get out of there. Yeah. And that's the right thing to do, diffuse the situation.
Yeah, well, this
smart judgment.
In that situation, if we were the same,
two hammerheads,
it would have just absolutely gone to shit.
Yeah,
so,
it's very interesting. It's a good dynamic, but let's take a couple of steps backwards before we go ranked forward. So we've kind of now understood the dynamic between you both. Who's the brain?
Depends in which capacity you're asking.
Well, generally there's a brain and brawn in there. We now know where the brawn is, and I think we know in a certain way the brain is actually with yourself in terms of methodical. I'm not talking about strategic approach and get things done, but the reality is the one who can be slow, methodical, understanding, coming from a logical perspective. Is that more you?
Yeah, I would say I've got a definite more logical step in how the process, and I'd think and I'd cross-examine. I'd say, should we be doing that or should we? And drives him mad because it's like I'm thinking, is it what they're saying it's going to be, and is that the way we want to do it, and is there another way? Is there this or X, Y?
So are you polar opposites then? Are you rocket shooting stars and you're more?
I'm more, yeah, and we sometimes fall probably somewhat in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got very different brains. I'm a very, I like people liking me, I suppose. There's an element of that. Like I like to think that I like to be respected, but also like people to get on with people as well.
Yeah.
So I think, if you were to ask a lot of staff that work for us, if they said, do you like him, like the guy, most would probably say yes. But I know with you, there'd still it'd be more polar opposite, I would say. Some would say yes, and some would be like, no.
I think the word aggressive management style was used at one point.
Whereas I come from, I'm more carrot and you're more stick, probably.
Yeah.
And I think there's different, and I'm very, the new role I'm going into with more systems, I think it suits me very well because I like to try and plug gaps, and I'm that person, like you'd be probably bailing out the boat when the water's coming in, and I'll be trying to plug the holes, but we both do similar sort of jobs as well anyway.
And
Yeah, to toot your horn for you, I think as far as the brain goes, it becomes this thing where I drive forward really quickly. And when I go back to sort of being able to be reserved in character and in nature, I think that takes far more brains, as you said, over the brawns, because it does take somebody with that level of patience and that almost meta understanding with foresight into a situation and almost in real time though, and go, well, if you do this, I know you're thinking about right now, but my brain is working 4 steps ahead. And if we were to do this, we need to think about the repercussions of this and that and the other. So from the brain aspect is something that you've got probably more over than I have, whereas mine's the vision to push, and this is where we need to get to. So I just see a straight path and I'm like, let's just all go gung-ho towards it. Mm-hmm. And you're there as the brain to sort of say, you need to think about this obstacle and this hurdle and this and that. So I think it's probably a good way to sort of put the brains of the brawns in this way. But again, that synergy between the two, if you haven't got that in a business, I don't want to say, well, yeah, pretty much any business, you've got Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, you've got Walt Disney, his brother's name escapes me.
I think what you're getting at is really valuable information though. There is the yin and the yang in quite a lot of industry. So me and our Steve are no different. He does things differently to I do. We both inevitably go to the same destination, and most times, more than not, we do go the same way. It's just the way we go around doing it. I would do it in a completely different way. He will do it, and then you've got to be careful. There's 2 alphas driving, but the dynamic's really interesting. So the point of being 2 brothers and having that personal relationship, it's actually strengthening the business decision making. That's quite interesting. And you've seen that dynamic. So let's look a bit about the education stuff. You went through high school. What happened? Did we go to university or did we go straight into the trade, the business? No.
So with me, I was like that person that was just didn't get it at school, like at all. Mm-hmm. I like the environment, again, going back to the friend element of things and building friendships and, getting on with people, maybe not the teachers. But it was more, I had to try a lot harder to get it. And I never got good grades. I got like 2 C's probably. Yeah. And I had to get put on a BTEC. It was that bad.
So I'm laughing here. You ain't star student here.
So
not quite, but we'll get to me.
So I really struggled with school. Like I said, I loved the friendship element of it. But, I was the class clown.
Yeah.
You know, I got detentions left, right, and centre. I even got expelled almost for like exploiting the school system, which, to be honest, I should have been paid for. Actually, that's a funny story.
We'll come back to that one.
Yeah, but it wasn't the place. So then after that, I went to college. Again, kind of sticking in that friend sphere. We all moved from Sutton to Lichfield, just, you know, in terms of school to college. And I got that a lot more. You know, it wasn't Sir, Miss, and this. It was more you were speaking to Mike, your teacher, or like, you know, Mary or whoever it might have been. And it was like, look, if you don't want to be here, go. Door's there.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
there's no one holding you in.
This is a bit different to what I was used to. And I got that a lot more, and I did well at college. But after that, you know, it was more working behind a bar and then into the business. But in terms of education, yeah, it's just not my bag at all. Like, I just don't learn that way. I'm far more creative. I like to feel I'm on my own path. And it's just too constrained. And it just didn't really work. But like I say, Mr. A star student over there.
Here we go.
Slightly different.
Shining star.
My brain is, fortunately, I've got a really good memory. I'm one of these people that for some reason I remember all of my passport details, my driving license number, all my card details, so I could get lost anywhere and still get myself home. And I was lucky like that. And I found the whole concept of school not really very challenging in terms of what I was doing. So I didn't enjoy doing it, and I didn't put any effort into actually the study and the revision. I've never revised for an exam in my life. I didn't really need to concentrate too much in the classes. And I just understood what they wanted from a student to get the grades. And that was always fortunate. But then I sort of, if I actually utilised the ability, I would have gotten a lot further. But what I instead did was almost rebel against the whole concept of it and think, this is stupid. There's no point in me being here. I'm not learning. If the teacher wasn't able to, let's say, understand my way of learning or wanting to be motivated, it would be very much just a case of, I'm going to switch off, and I'll switch off for the whole lesson, and I'll be head in the clouds. And I'd still pass the test. I'd still get B's. There was a time I'd got.
He's fuming.
There was a time I'd got something like 4 off full marks in a geography test. So I got A star from a GCSE.
Yeah.
No revision, barely concentrated. The whole of that. What do they call it? Not semesters.
Just the
term for that term.
Yeah.
And the teacher thought I'd cheated, because he couldn't comprehend how he knew I hadn't revised. He knew I'd put no effort in. I never did the homework. So it was just a case of, he pulled the exam back, he went through it, realised it was my work, and he put it on the front of the classroom board the following term and said, if Tyler can get full marks on his test without concentrating and revising for a whole term, you lot can do the same. I mean, now in reality, I should have punched him in the face. If he did that now, cheeky bastard. But, you know, it was one of those things that I was really lucky. But to say it was potentially squandered because I didn't enjoy some of the learning elements, if I didn't enjoy the subject, more importantly, the teacher.
Yeah.
I've come from this really big, and I can't shake it, this term respect. Again, I find it very hard to listen or learn from somebody that I don't respect. And I went into a sports background following school or during school. So it was always football, tennis, cricket, it was as we did as boys. Never really found myself falling in love with those sports, mainly because they were team sports that I came to find later when I started boxing. So I found myself with a friend who had been boxing as a family with his whole life. And he, on a night out, again, you've all had a few drinks, he had a white collar event coming up with his older brother. They were putting a show on. And he said to me, I'd just started going to the gym. And before that at school, I was tall, lanky, neat, skin and bone. And I just started going to the gym, so probably about 12 months into training, and I thought all of a sudden I was like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Rocky Balboa.
Absolutely, absolutely not at the same time. And he said to me on a night, he says, like, give this boxing thing a go, Ty. And I said, you're insane. I've never had a fight in my life. I've never been involved in boxing. Why on earth would I do that? He goes, trust me, the best thing you ever do. He goes, the discipline, the respect that you'll learn from it. You will love this. He goes, I know you, and I know you are going to love this. Just give it a go. Trust me. You don't have to commit to anything. Just come to a couple of the sessions. We'll look after you because it's me and my brother, and we'll genuinely, we will put you through all the training. And if you don't like it, you don't have to get involved.
Yeah.
But I wish you did. So tell me, you've got to say yes now. So I told him and I committed to it. Went there the first day, put a pair of gloves on, fell in love with it. And because of the respect and the guy that was coaching and how he was coaching, it took my mind back to school, where I'm looking at someone who has been there, worn the t-shirt, and they've got the blood stains still on the, on all the gloves. And exactly. And they've got the trophies, the belts and everything in the corner. So I'm learning from someone who I can just out and out respect. And going back to school, some of the teachers, and we know this and everybody does, that some of the teachers just shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
They are purely there like
For a paycheck.
Day to day, not bothered, don't really care about the position, don't care about what results the kids are getting. They just, as long as they're kind of meeting the grade that the school sets them to hit, they don't care. And kids can see that. And I was certainly really aware of it. And so the classes where the teachers weren't bothered, I certainly wasn't bothered. And if they didn't give me any semblance of authority or knowledge to the point that I could respect it, I'd just switch off.
Yeah.
And so for me, school was this really interesting place where I sort of managed to get through it. I enjoyed it. And some of the subjects I really honed in on. And again, it would depend on the teacher. But it's something that I look back on now and probably think I'd wasted some of the time there and some of the opportunity that could have been presented had I have probably put more effort.
It's quite interesting how you're both different but slightly similar. So from your sporting background then, what you chased, what happened? Did you go college, uni, straight into a job?
No, so business? For us, me and my dad being very similar, so he is me, and we've got that same temperament. Both highly dominant, sort of high authoritarian.
He is you, or are you him?
I'm him. Sorry, I should have said. Yeah, other way around.
That really would be
same, but different. same, but different. But yeah, so my thing at school was, I never wanted to go and work with him because he was always, the staunch businessman, and he was always a really strict authority figure that I just resented in certain ways, because again, I felt like I couldn't break out of that shadow. So the last thing I wanted to do was to then go and work for the guy who I loved to pieces, but I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So I was always very entrepreneurial at school as well, to be fair. So I always loved money, and Conor McGregor said this wicked line, which he's got an unhealthy addiction with spending money, but a healthy obsession with making it.
Yeah.
And I love that quote because it just really rings true for me. And at school, we all wanted to make that bit of extra cash. And at the time, the Xbox 360 was rife in schools. All the lads were playing Call of Duty and FIFA. But whether you remember this, if you turned your Xbox the wrong way round, you'd get laser burn on the discs.
Yeah.
And a game at 40 quid every time to replace it was not a good thing to have because you just couldn't use the disc. And I remember, you'll probably remember as well, that Dad showed us how to use T-cut on the back of the discs. And it fixed the scratches just like you would on a car. It took them out and the game started working. So I was like, right, 20 quid a disc, I'll sort you all out. And it was the best business because you're just taking all these discs and fixing everyone's games, charging them 20 quid. And it was a right little money maker until my mate came and ruined it and said, He wanted me to do one of his, and I said, look, I'm busy, I can't be asked, just use this. Oh. And he's then gone and told everyone at school. So again, literally, the whole reason KFC doesn't give away the secret spices is for that exact reason. So learn that.
Can't even trust your mates.
Yeah, I learned that business rule early on. But both of us, to be fair, we were going out on our bikes, we were knocking on doors, we were doing jobs. To help make some money for ourselves, and just the basic stuff that young lads would do.
Another one I did a lot of.
Yeah,
like buying players that were like really low, and then like rejigging the market to sell them really high, and then ended up like selling all these players for like 10 times what they're originally worth. And I used to sell the points on eBay.
It's quite interesting that you both had that mindset.
But it was drilled into us.
Yeah.
And then leaving school and getting to a point, I had some jobs at school, but I felt like a bit lost because for me it was this large dream, big aspirations to do something really special with my life, and I've
What was
always
the
wanted
dream?
to do that. To step out of my dad's shadow, really, and to look at him and sort of say, the competitor in me was always, this is what you've done, but look at me. And it sounds quite boastful, and I don't know whether it is just I can't hide away from who I am. It's just I've always been really competitive, and I saw the lifestyle that my dad had afforded us, and I respected what he'd done. But for me, I wanted sort of more, and I always wanted to push beyond. And so I found myself being quite lost, not really with much of an education. Uni was just not for me. The idea of going to a university and paying all that money for something that I knew early on, because I did my first year of sixth form. So I'd gone to what's classed as sort of year 12. I was about 17 and I was dossing around. I dropped a subject.
Wasting life.
Yeah, and it was so obvious to me at that point when we were going into free periods, playing poker and card games and all of that during school, leaving, dropping a lesson, leaving early, going home at lunch, pretend not turning up to your last lessons. Just like you said, in college, you didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
Where I think that's slightly changed now. But with that freedom, again, it was the first time in life it was probably given to me. And I realised that I was wasting it. I was using this freedom to just piss around.
Yeah.
And so there was a bit of a revelation where it was like, this path that I'm on. And again, I go back to what I said at the start, this self-reflection and looking at your circumstances, looking at what you're doing and how you're doing it and go, is this actually right for me? Is this path that I'm on going to lead me to where I want to go? Even if where I want to go isn't exactly crystal clear, you should have a basic understanding of who you are, what drives you, to sort of look at the activities that you're doing on a daily basis.
What drives you?
Me, do you know what? The sense of achievement and the sense of fulfillment. I want to get to the end of my life and say that there's nothing that I didn't do. Everything that I wanted to do, I set out and I did it.
I'm going to blow your mind in a minute. What's your ambition?
I would say to make my dad proud. And when we were just discussing it, a really vivid memory just hit me. And I think it really came from when I was it was in primary school, like I said, and he'll know the story. I was set projects as you are, little school projects. And it was called the Flower Project, hilariously enough.
It's laughing at you.
And I was doing it got home from school. I was like, oh, Mum, got to do this flower project. Again, don't know what you're on year 2, but whatever.
Yeah.
Because I came home, it was like, oh yeah, okay, we'll do it. Spend all day. I think it was the following day you worked from home or whatever it was, or it was on the afternoon. So spent hours in the garden. We were chopping up bits of flowers, and I'm going in on the streets, picking up again little bits here. Neighbours love me. But spent all day doing this whole book. Got home, working with my mum, bits of glue here, writing bits here, this is there, this is that flower, la 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 la. It was work I was proud of.
Pretty good.
It took a long time,
yeah.
to do. And as a kid, but Dad came home and he had the red mist on him. He obviously had a bad day, and he's come in and he's just looked at what I've done, picked it up and just ripped it up and gone, that's shit. What do you call that shit? And I'm obviously in absolute, what's all flowers? And obviously, it's hilarious now, but at the time it kills you.
Destroyed your world.
And I'm and I don't know if maybe that's the beginning of really wanting to make him proud because of that moment.
Neither one of you have got kids, have you?
I've got a little girl.
You got a little girl?
Yeah, she's 18 months coming up to, so she's just at that age. She's starting to talk and babble, and she's walking now.
So, what makes you think? Bear in mind, your dad's probably going to see this.
Definitely.
Hi, Dad.
What makes you think that man does not feel proud of you still?
See, I know because he says it all the time that he's definitely proud of what we've done, to date. And I think no matter what we did,
Do you believe it?
I do. Yeah, I do believe it now. Yeah, I do believe him when he
there.
says.
We're gonna pause.
Hesitation.
Yeah,
I'm going to pause. Do you believe it?
He's a very hard man to read. And I think because of the circumstances
there,
and the
we're gonna
background
pause
he's
again.
come from.
Is your word your bond?
Mine is.
yeah.
So when your dad tells you, I'm proud of you, why don't you believe it?
Well, this is it. I do, but like I say, there's hesitation because I always think because
So
it's how
isn't
he's built us up.
A you problem, not
Yeah.
a him problem. Because he's clearly had his time and brought the leather belt out to ensure that you guys are the version of you two today.
Yeah.
So I don't know the guy, but I can take a stab that he's hella proud of
I
you two.
I
gents.
definitely think he is. I think the reason there's a hesitation, certainly from my side, and sorry, Dad, I think it's because of the fact that there is this fight in him. There's this fire that will never be extinguished. But sometimes the reality is the body isn't as strong as the mind at times, and the body can fail first. And I don't want to sort of say that he's past it a little bit in his own head. His head is.
He's gonna knock you out.
He can do. He will do. But
Forget Greece.
in the sense of he says to himself, and he admits it. It's not that I'm saying, but he's furious, and there's that anger in there where he isn't able to perform in the way that he used to.
Yeah.
And so I think every father and son will always have this dynamic where that young, hungry lion steps up to try and challenge the master and the pupil, and that is kind of how that dynamics work. But the best masters are the ones that have trained their pupils well enough to one day be able to take the mantle on and give them that sort of. So in that sense, that he is eternally proud, and I think that he is 100% proud of what we've done, how we've done it, and who we are as people. But then I think the only hesitation in the back of my mind is there's always that little, like, oh, I still want to try and compete with them, and they still
Competition
don't
is
know
healthy.
everything. Yeah.
Right. So I said this with my two boys. I've set the benchmark now. It's for you boys to get above that.
How do you set that? How do you go about setting that between that healthy competition out for the both of them?
So I'll do it in both personal and business. So I get to be with them. So obviously with the football team. And it's hard for me.
Yeah.
So my lad is, without a shadow of a doubt, the best version of himself every time he shows up.
Shout out Armthorpe Wolves, by the way.
He turns up, and he will always say to me, "Dad, can you make me be better?" I say, "It's not up to me to make you better. It's up to you. I don't kick the ball, you kick the ball.
100%.
I don't run, you run. It goes, and this is personal and it is in business. So to be the best version of you, you need the inner tools. So your dad has done exactly what I will say to my boy in terms of, I've given you all the tools. It's down to you now. And the frustration in him is that he's still you. He's still your age. He still wants to do it. But he's got to give the baton to you. He'll be immensely proud, like I'm immensely proud of Harley, but I will constantly raise that bar. It's my job. It's my duty to ensure that that bar is raised. When he hits that milestone, I don't care. Go again. I don't care. Go again. Just have a look over the shoulder every now and again and go, that was a pretty decent journey. You have a good time along the way. So like I broke my pelvis. I had 30% survival rate, pretty much dead.
hell.
Yeah. And you have a bit of a time to think about yourself. Laying in a hospital bed, you're pretty much paralysed, you can't move, you can't do it, and you're waiting your fate. You're potentially going to die on a theatre table. 30% survival rate. You start to map your life out. And I realised that I'm chase, work, and you forget actually the legacy that you're leaving behind. So then it was like, hang on a minute, if we are leaving legacies, my footprints walk forward and leave the footprint, right? Well, my boy is going to walk in those footprints at some point, in some fashion. They're going to see them or walk in them, whichever. Mm-hmm. They're going to then go, there's either a proud footprint there to be, I'm walking my dad's footsteps, or what was he thinking? So I took the decision to go, no, I will show them. So whenever my boys went down at football, I would scream at them, get up, because you are pointless on that floor. Same as what some of the stories you guys were talking about. Those disciplines need to be installed at an early age. Get up off that floor and get on. Other parents will be like, you're a bit too harsh on them. And not too harsh. It's not acceptable to go down. Get up and move on. You know, in a sporting environment, football, if there's 11 players on the field and one goes down, that's 10. 10 v 11, you're out. Man. Get up. Get back to 11 v 11. It's a game of equality in terms of like numbers, right? So I was like, well, I'm not out. I'm down. I'm not out. I broke my pelvis. I'll get back up and I will show my boys that whilst I was down, but I got straight back up. So I got back on the bike and I cycled the coast to coast. And I said to the boys, right, I've done it in 40 hours. It's not that impressive because I slept on top of
Using one leg.
Yeah, no, I was, fortunately, it was within the year of actually breaking my pelvis. Did it, recovered, and then went, I'm doing it, and off we went. And I did the coast to coast, and I said, right, boys, I've done that. And they're like, oh, wow. I says, no, it's not wow. That's now your first benchmark. So I expect you boys to get on your bike and at least match or beat my time. And that's the healthy competition kind of it. Then relaying it in business, it's like, I will always say to my boys, what do you want to be when you're older? And they'll give it the whole thing. We did it. I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a footballer, I want to be whatever it may well be, whatever it may well be. And I always say to them, whatever you do in life, just be happy. That'll make me proud. Because I know giving them the skills in order to do anything, because that's the deep, like, rooted core fundamentals, right? There's necessities. Do this every day and you'll conquer anything. It's that mindset, it's that resilience building up. So really, from me listening to you guys, and we asked the question, do you think your old man's proud of you? It's without a question, without hesitation. It's absolutely. Of course he's proud of you. But yet you're fighting your own little battles. So that then brings me to the question of, are you on your journey for you, for someone else? Which one are you on it for?
I'm in it for me. I'm 100% in it for me. But I think as a person, you can be in something for yourself that affects positively those around you, because I think the reward that I get from helping my loved ones is as equal to my success and my happiness as it is to just doing something for myself. And I think a lot of men fall into this trap, and I say fall into a trap. I think it's something that we all expose ourselves to because we are providers at heart. That is our nature. We want to help those around us, most of us. And I feel like that's also been beaten out of a lot of people now. I think even going into the dating world, I see this level of equality that's trying to be sort of brushed across this landscape, that men now have lost this mindset of you are here to provide, you are here to look after and protect. And now, well, I'm not paying for the whole thing, or I shouldn't have to do this, or I don't need to be a gentleman. And again, seeing the example that our dad set, and this is the importance of having a strong father figure in the house to set the examples, to create the discipline. It's one of those things where I feel that's where like a lot of the breakdowns are, and you with your boys, and it's lovely to see, and it's something that I don't know how I'm going to sort of potentially mirror the dynamic with obviously a little girl, or whether it's the same, or whether I want to instill the same values or potentially something slightly different, and whether I need to lean more on mom to basically say, what is the things that as a little girl, what do you value and how do you value things? Because I don't get that mindset, because it is such a shift away from where I'm at, which is all battle and full on and protection and stress and accomplishment fulfillment. And it's a very different way of approaching things. So have you...
So this is the interesting one, right? And I suppose you'll be able to add some value here, but you'll be able to think about it for yourself. Are you doing anything for your kids? Do you want your kids to be proud of you?
Without any question, yeah, 100%. So I think a lot of, as I said, what I do is for the benefit of family. But I think then sometimes I have had to self-correct and again, self-reflect as well. Mm. And I've spoke to a lot of people, we're entrepreneurs, we're business owners, and we fall into this space of coming up with really logical sounding excuses to excuse the behavior that we put out into the world to basically say, oh, well, I'm working this hard, I'm making these sacrifices now for my family. And it's like, yeah, great, but you're sacrificing your family time now, and you're either destroying a relationship or you're missing out on opportunities to teach, guide, learn. We need you here now, and you're using this excuse of hard work, perseverance, and sacrifice to grow and scale a business for your family, but you're not listening to what your family want or need.
Okay, so
It's like that film Click.
yeah. It's interesting. So, very quickly, what was 2 things that you loved about what your dad did when you were younger?
Looking back now, it's the discipline and respect of the name, and that, you know, he's always said, you don't need to like me, but you're going to respect me. And so those 2 things for me is the work ethic, the discipline.
What did you
respect.
hate?
What it took to learn those lessons.
So those. Now you're bearing in mind you're coming next, and you haven't got kids, so you're going to be like a step slightly different here. But are you the carbon copy of what your dad is to you, and as to you are with your daughter?
I think there's similarities. I think he had a very different upbringing to what I had. He came from a broken family and living with his dad from the age of 6 and his twin brother, and having his dad then turn to alcohol and having a real problem with drinking, bringing lunatics into the household, women that sort of were stabbing him, not him, but his dad, and seeing all this craziness that was happening. And so I think what happened with him was, and again, my mom came from a similarly unfortunate background. Her dad passed away in a car accident when she was 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. So, and her mom and her they did not get on. And again, string of boyfriends that, again, not nice people. So both very difficult, especially in those times where certainly back in the late 60s, early 70s, the nuclear family was so common. There was no real sort of a diversion away from that.
Yeah.
And so when they had me and my brother, it was very much a case of, we are going to try our best to block you away from any of that pain that we endured, which could have potentially led to some form of detriment if it hadn't have been for potentially the discipline that was instilled, because it could have then led to 2 very entitled, spoilt little arseholes, putting it bluntly.
Yeah.
And now with the way that I've seen things, I think that I've now got to choose between this life wrapped in cotton wool or being the disciplinarian to make sure that, even as a father, that, because there was a time when, like I said, when Dad had come home from work and I didn't like him. I loved him, but I didn't like him.
You hated him at one point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so there's this fine line between how far do you push the needle with your own children to this point of, I am doing this for your benefit, but you're too young to see what I'm trying to do and the lessons I'm trying to instill.
Yeah.
So how far do you push that level of pain to learn a lesson for the right reasons at the sacrifice or at the cost of them thinking, I hate my dad, or I hate him, just as, you know, in that sense, a strong word, but you know what I mean.
So man and son, I believe that can happen. Because you're trying to train a warrior. Because life's hard, right?
Yeah.
You've got a daughter. Your daughter's now 18. What does she think of you?
But yeah, it's a fly into the future, that one. I was 17 years off that. I didn't want to have to think about that for a while. But for me,
I'm deep a little bit.
As a dad to a little girl, I think
she's 18 now.
Certainly, this is what I mean. Certainly with the landscape of what women are doing these days, you know, shower, body blue, and the madness that she's doing at the minute.
Bonnie Budd just got a shout out on the pod.
Well, you know, she calls herself a businesswoman. I mean, I've yet to see some of the business aspects of it, but I mean, anyway, not to
We've
digress.
gone from your daughter being 18 to Bonnie Budd. Where's this going?
The landscape of what women perceive to be as acceptable nowadays, I think a lot of it can stem from potentially like the home environment. I think a lot of it comes from this acceptance of extremity now in a social environment where everything is on social media. Attention to garner it needs to be extreme. So to the point of what Bonnie Blue's doing, that's the level of extreme now. Someone will come along in a year's time and push that extremity to the next level, and it'll, you know, it's a one-way ticket to hell, to be honest, but it's all downhill. So for me as a dad to look back, I think for what I'd want with Aria, my little girl, and how I'd want her to see me would be as someone that has set the example for what it means to be a good man. And I think that was something that we got from our dad as well, was he set the example of what it means to be a good man. And I think that's probably the most important lesson that he's taught.
So let's just reflect a second, because do you really think you need to hesitate when answering the question? Do you think your old man's proud of you?
No.
When you don't need to hesitate.
Yeah.
You know full well he's proud of you. But it's come with nearly the ultimate sacrifice of resent, of hatred, just to build two warriors that are now born out of the same cloth and about to replicate the same mission. On the downside is you've now got to change the dynamics. You've got a daughter.
I'll have to do the other side then, I suppose. When it happens
We've got to.
Shoes on the other foot now. If you get boys, you'll get girls. So, can you raise a female warrior, or should you raise a female princess?
I think warrior princess sounds good. I think there's something where a lot of women nowadays, they have turned to this path of the warrior just because most men have forgotten, and most men aren't warriors, and most men have turned into this soft and incapable man. And so women are having to step up.
Can I ask you a weird question?
Fire away.
Knowing your dad being your dad and you've known what he's like, is that what he really wanted, or did he have to be that man?
I think he definitely wanted that. He wanted to be the stabilising force because his childhood was such anarchy.
Did he want you to hate him?
At times, probably. Not like proper hate, but he definitely wanted us to use that probably as motivation to really
Cruel
drive
to be
us.
kind.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's going to be hard for you to answer this one because obviously there's no children yet. But it's going to be even harder for you to answer this because Arla's now 18 months.
Yeah.
What are you both prepared to sacrifice? Like your dad did.
Well, again, like you say, it's difficult to answer, but I'd say everything. You like if it came down to it and you had to choose, you'd do everything or anything for your children. That's the whole point of it. I think your life completely changes from caring about yourself and your own selfish things to then caring about the life you've created. So I think when it does happen for me, there's a complete switch where it's, you don't go out and buy, some for 100 odd quid for yourself, or you go buy a nice pair of shoes or whatever. You spend a nice pair of shoes for your son or whatever. I think but you've got to still have the foundations. If, the thing that's providing for your children is the business, then obviously you've still got to be able to continue that forward to allow yourself to have the vehicle to
I can see
provide.
why you would answer the way you're answering, because of obviously how you were, like in the red mist moment, you were still able to keep the fist down, protect him. You didn't want to hurt him and ruin his pretty face. You know, you wanted to hold back and say, no, you're drunk.
I could have at that point. To be fair, on a normal day, I'd give him the glove, but like at that point, with how bad he was. Yeah. But anyway.
But that's the level of control there. You've been able to be selfless in that scenario. Let's see this answer.
I mean, my first thought is a nuanced, weird one, but I wouldn't sacrifice anything. And the reason for that is that I wouldn't see it as a sacrifice. I feel like it's kind of a given. Your children are a part of you. And again, go back to this term legacy. And for me, my biggest legacy that I can leave on this earth is leaving a part of me behind, just as our dad has with us, to be able to continue on his teachings, his lessons, his name, or the family name, and how he's influenced us, and then that gets passed down. And I think, look, I don't want to say that there's a right way of living, but I think as a society, we can all understand and see that certain things that are happening in today's landscape are just not the norm, and they're going down south quick. And this level of teachings that we've had from our dad, I think, is genuinely the cure for a lot of the problems that we have today. As we've said, discipline, respect, love for each other, being proud of who you are, your family, where you're from, all these things. Yeah, they're the values that we've got. So I wouldn't be prepared to sacrifice anything. I would just see it as the fact that I'd sacrifice nothing but everything, because I wouldn't see it as a sacrifice, because sacrificing myself to make her the best version of herself so she can live on my name and our family name and my values is all I need.
So are you prepared to risk it all?
Without a doubt. Yeah. But then I ask myself the question, again, upon self-reflection, so I'm big on it, do I risk it all every single day? And the answer is no.
Why?
Because...
Bear in mind, you're on camera now.
As long as the staff aren't watching. No, it's one of those things. I know, I'll show them this. They'd love to see it. I think it's one of those things that you can work and you can be in your mind sort of... You live with your own mind every single day. And being the type of person I am, being quite self-critical, wanting to seek improvement, wanting to sort of look back at the legacy that I've left. If I didn't have that level of self-criticality towards my own performance all the time, I would end up being satisfied along the way each time, rather than that sort of lovely saying, proud but never satisfied.
Yeah.
It forces you to push, like you were saying with your boys, to the next level and to the next level and to the next level. And if you don't have that in you, you need to find someone that can pull it out of you, certainly as a man, or somebody that, even as a woman, anybody that's in competition, anybody that's and business is the most competitive space that you will find yourself in, second to none. It is a dog eat dog world, and if your business is not competing well enough, you will die. And the pain of that we've seen with our dad's business, and the stress and the issues that can cause, not only in the home, in yourself, in your health, everything. Like, this is so important that you are actively, like you said, self-reflecting, being critical. So if I ask myself, do I risk it all every day? The answer would be no, because I always want to push for more and I always want to risk more. But I think when you become a dad, you realise that the risk tolerance has to be sated just a little bit, because you can't quite risk it all, because you've got now, like you said, a little girl to look after and to make sure that she's not really in a position to go to work just yet and look after herself.
Unless she was in China, but you know.
No, but I mean, it's quite an interesting one, because obviously we mentioned the team there, right? And hopefully the team do see this, because in order to lead and inspire that team, you need to be able to put it all on the line. And if you take it as an individual and go, it's all on me, it's kind of that wrong way approach. So, like, this is what I really like about the dynamic of you two. We'll have some funny questions in a second, but are you prepared to risk everything?
100%. At the point of, you're on about the point of children.
The
Or just
word
in
anything
general.
is anything. Are you prepared to risk your relationship with your brother in order
Oh, no.
to succeed?
No.
Are you prepared to risk your relationship with your brother in order to succeed?
No.
So go back to the question I originally asked. Are you prepared to risk everything?
Yeah, no.
It's-
Not my relation. And that goes back again, like I'd said, with school. The relationships with people and friends and things that I've built up over my life, they're some of the things that they are the things I hold most dear. You know, whether it's, mum or dad, brother, friends. If you're kind of in Meet the Parents, you're in the circle of trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of like that. And when you're in my circle of trust, you are the most important people to me.
As well.
And so I wouldn't sacrifice those relationships for anything.
So have a second to think before you answer this one. Every one of your team at work, are you prepared to risk everything for those people?
Well, I think there's levels to it, I suppose. And anyone who watches is going to be on the same kind of level as to what I'm about to say, is that you've got, your immediate family and friends, which are the most important people in the world. But then there's obviously rungs to that ladder where you've got then your team and people and then your business. And there's each rung of the ladder where they're extremely important and you'd want to do everything for them. You'd wouldn't quite put your life on the line, but, you'd work nights, days, every hour of every day to try and make sure that they can prepare, they can do what they need to do for their families.
Mm-hmm.
But, in terms of a priority order, I think everyone's got that kind of priority order in the most
That goes
important
without
people.
saying.
But I'd definitely, in terms of time, dedication, and anything like that, I'd sacrifice all of that for the people that work for us.
I think the way
Do they know that?
They will now.
I think they definitely see the amount of work that we put in, emails late at night, the building of relationships where we come in and birthdays and things like, we try and do as much as we can for the team, but we can do a lot more. There's always room to improve. But it's a difficult question.
The way I see it is almost like the company being like a car or a bus, and those that want to be on the bus, anybody on that bus, family, friends, work colleagues, people that work in the team. And I don't call them employees. I don't like that word.
It's got bad stigma around it.
It just sounds awful. Yeah. It just goes back to this crazy notion of like I'm an employer and you're my employee, and it's like I'm no one special. But I personally, and I say this to everyone that ever joins the business, we've just got a guy coming to start in the warehouse. And it rings true for our now business manager who started as a warehouse manager. No job role is off limits within this business. Mm-hmm. I am no one special. If you can come in and do my job better than me, you can have my job, and all the stress and all the headache and anxiety that goes with it. You can also have the benefits that come with it, but you need to do a better job than I do. And good luck to you. And there are people out there that would do a much better job than me at what I do. And I've got that mindset where I know that I don't know what I don't know. And there's a path for me to continue learning, leveraging other people's information. So I'm on a bus and I'm driving the bus, and I love and care for everybody on that bus that's within it. But if you're there pissing around on the bus, on my bus, and creating issues and creating problems, and you're slashing my tyres and you're messing about, I'm like, that bus is stopping and you're getting off.
Yeah.
And so I risk anything and everything for the people on that bus. At the same time, I have a slightly smaller tolerance for who gets to stay on and who gets to go off, because it's my bus and I'm the one driving. Now, I'm also probably, again, we use circle of trust is a good one, so that's the same thing. I'm probably in other circles as well, so you sort of behave differently, where I can equally be a part of somebody else's bus and have them drive, and follow and be respectful. I said again, but it comes back to that, for me personally anyway, that initial mindset of, I need to respect you. But if I'm going to give you the control of this bus and let you have the steering wheel, I need to be confident in your ability to drive this vehicle forward.
Yeah.
Or in the direction that I can at least see as being a visible and worthwhile direction for us to travel in, because otherwise, again, I'll stop and I'll pull the brake and I'll get off myself. So certainly, yeah, the team see that. I think we can all do more for our teams as a business and as business owners, because we get so wrapped up into pushing the business forward and what's next and how do we get there, and this is the vision and this is the mission, and we all want to try and push it, and nobody cares as much about your business or my business, our business, as us.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the way it should be.
Yeah, it shouldn't be frowned upon, or we shouldn't need to be hiding the truth in that, look, I've got a family over here, and that ultimately takes priority. And hey, team, you guys have family, and I expect you put them first, of course. However, what allows us to spend time with our family is this vehicle, this bus that we're talking about. So I have this kind of phrase, is like what I've took from like what your dad instills into you, in terms of, I will give you my 100% everything. I just expect the same in return. And when you look at it like that, you'll feel that, well, you'll not have disappointment. You have frustrations on the way, of course, because you your ups, your downs. But if, rather than a bus, go to a boat, if everyone's rowing in the same direction, it's amazing. But you have to smoothen it out, get the strokes the same. And now it's like you're racing. It's like the Oxford versus Cambridge rowing boat race, right? Yeah. You've all got to row in harmony, in synchronization. You've got to float across that water. But if everyone were going rapid, like, the boat would be chopping all over the shop. And that is what a lot of businesses are like. But yeah, it's interesting to hear, would you be prepared to risk it all? Internally of a business, family to one side, internally of a business, I think it's fair to say that we share the same kind of values in that, absolutely, everything's on the line every day. Absolutely every day. But we act with the best intentions of the business to protect everybody. So it's an easy decision. If a contract comes to the table and it's not beneficial to the company, well, it gets batted out the door in order to protect our team. For me, it's an easy one. But those sort of like understandings, those decision making, was right back at the very start, where we had the leather belt out from the dad and we were feared. You was installed from a very early age. Sorry.
Do you think discipline is important to instill into a team? And
Absolutely.
How would you do that? Or certainly in a team environment nowadays where we're a lot softer than we used to be. And again, I get stories. And my dad, again, similar to yours, was an engineer, and he worked in factories, and it was industrial, and it was, being honest, I don't want to say like manly men, but we can all sort of picture what it would be like in the sort of 50s up to the sort of 80s, early 90s, where you've got factory environment, industrial revolution, and you've got a bunch of blokes around machines. And if somebody's pissing around, it's punch ups, it's hands around throats, it's thrown out the front door. It's not disciplinaries and first warning and written warning, and we'll all have a sit down and have a chat. It's get the fuck out of my company and don't come back, because otherwise it's going to be trouble.
And when you look at that though, you've got to look at, like, it's either life or death certain scenarios, isn't it? So imagine in the military, where the consequence is great, you're dead. If you don't do as you're told, you could die.
Very true.
You're going to do as you're told. You're going to do as you're told. It's that simple. Because if you don't, you could die. So take that into a business, arena, where you've got, spinner molars going off, or you've got pressers, and it's very, very dangerous stuff. The last thing that you want is an idiot coming in there getting hurt, because then you've got to be the guy that goes to tell his mum and dad.
True.
So the last thing you want is an idiot. I have seen spinner molars take fingers off. One of the lads, he took like across 4 hands there, just whipped clean off, just being stupid. They are battle scars. You get, I was talking about Azam about this, in terms of like, we believe that you become more experienced by the battle scars than you do age. Age if you sit in a room all day and it's got butterflies and, everything's all great, you're not becoming experienced through age. But you go out to war, you go out to battle every day, go into a business every day, wear every hat. You get hit left, right, fall out of a tree, you hit every branch. You get experience through your war wounds by doing it. So I think by being disciplined from a very early age, you're kind of pre-warned about these consequences. And it kind of makes you a little bit more alert to them and a little bit more resilient as well. And when you start coming into a business perspective, it's why I want to keep today more about you two than the actual business. Because the business will do it. It's a great business. It'll thrive because you've got great teams. But it's the individuals that are leading and inspiring it. So you asked the question about the team. I'm fortunate enough to, and I end up being in the situation where it was either take control or not. I spoke about this on a LinkedIn post with the football lads. And they were being poorly mistreated. It was terrible. And it was like, you know what, it's in our nature. Grab the reins and let's go. And we did. And we didn't have a captain. And we had to make a choice because you have to have a captain in a team. So as the managers, you've got all the parents, and the parents are the worst. They're all opinionated. Do this, do that, run there. Oh, what are you doing? They are the worst. Okay? So now you're an educated businessman, or not educated, but you're a businessman. When you look at it, but you're in that role, and now you've got your team in front of you, your staff, your footballers, your headless chicken, and you've got to go and put a performance on because that's what's expected. It's no different in a business scenario. So we built 3 pillars, just like we do in business. Right, guys? I know you can all kick a ball. That's why you're here. 3 things: 100% effort, communication, and pass. That was it. And we won the league on those 3 pillars. How we won the league is we didn't have a captain. You need a voice on the pitch. So we selected somebody who would be our voice on that pitch. So it's like us as business owners. We select a foreman or a manager, general manager. It's the carbon copy of us, but internally of the business.
How did you decide?
Great question. So how we decided was because he had the passion. He shared the same values. He got it. He understood it. He just needed to learn his ability. So we needed to push him, test him, break him, where he can reflect. And I remember there was one key moment where he came to me upset because the team weren't listening to him. We told him to go and do a job. Go and tell your team to do this. Bear in mind, they are, for context, 11, 12-year-old. And he's the youngest. So he's the youngest of the team. And we told him to go and tell his peers, tell your teammates to do this. They came off at half time, and you could see him welling up. They're not listening to me. Why they're not listening? And all that half, he was yelling instruction. Do this, do that, do this, do that. To get him to realise, be a boss or a leader, which one you want to be, I couldn't tell him he's been a boss. I had to ask him, which one are you being? Are you leading your team or are you bossing them around? No one likes a boss. And everybody loves to be led. So lead and inspire, i.e. you be the big loud voice, scream want the ball more than anybody else, and distribute it using the same 3 pillars. So put the effort in, be the loudest person on the pitch, run everywhere, don't stop running, but keep communicating to everybody, pass with instruction. Those 3 pillars, everybody came off the second half going, wow, Lucas, you were insane. The biggest difference was he learnt the boss people about, no one likes you. You become the version what you need them to be, and they follow you. And to see that in children, that's super powerful.
Our dad always said that in life, his dad told him that there are sheep and there are shepherd. So my question is, do you recognise that even at such a young age, 10, 11, 12, that there are people that are natural born leaders? Or do you believe that the leadership trait is something that you have to learn through, again, either life experience, as you said, so you're either, it's the things that happen to you, not just the numbers on the clock, or is there just a natural tendency for people, or is it a mixture of all of it?
Well, think about it. Let's go back to your two. So you've got one who's sitting in the perceived position that's the leader. But yet you've got the other who's actually leading in a completely different way. You know, the reality is putting a cat amongst the pigeons sometimes is necessary to cause the situation in order for people to become alert. So to create a scenario like what your dad created, maybe it was intentional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to ruffle the feathers in order to get the result, because you're not looking. So if we had a conversation, we're like, hey, do that. You get accustomed to saying, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Well, now you've created a very weak position, because without your voice, that don't get done. So you need to be able to lead and inspire in certain ways. But yet a boss walks in and is hated, but yet he's created a community that united, a community that will actually do the do. Because they want to, you know, let's say you put a foreman on the shop floor and they start to, you know, side with some people but hate other people. At first you'll get a rift. And it'll be like, oh, well, he said, she said, all that malarkey is going to happen. But eventually they'll smarten up and go, hang on a minute, it's him, he's the problem. And they start and unite. Used to when you were fighting, right? Same as brothers. You fight, and you're angry, and you're red in the face, and your enemies, the moment you hear that leather belt go, or your mum's like going, Tyler, God, and you're like, your best mates. Your best mates. Your instant best mates. You've formed that allegiance. It's quite a different sort of like scenario at that point. That's where you pick each other up, dust it off, we don't fight, we're fighting.
Yeah, and it's like what I'd said, you know, we're very much, there's the competition there, but we always want the absolute best. And the only reason the competition exists is really, like you say, that bar, it's kind of, we're starting here, then it's here, then it's here.
Yeah.
One gets a little bit better than the other one gets a little bit better, then it kind of, you constantly then building each other up in an upward spiral of improvement. And I think you want that for your team as well when it's within your business. And going back to that toolbox, learning as much as you can to have as many tools in that toolbox is the best thing you can do for your team.
Well, when you look at a team, does everyone love the kiss arse?
Nobody.
Nobody loves the kiss arse. Nobody loves the guy who's brown nosing. It's a one-way ticket to maybe individual success for so long.
Yeah.
What you're better off doing is creating a community that they all elevate together. You know, it's the superstars are great, aren't they? But like Cristiano Ronaldo, why does he get so frustrated if he don't get the ball at his feet?
He's doing everyone else.
Not everyone's at his level.
Yeah.
And the reality is, could you win a football, like if Cristiano Ronaldo went into a Sunday League side, would he guarantee win for his team? No. You've got a good, strong chance.
You got a good chance.
But like, you're not guaranteed to win. Because the opposition know all they're going to do is going to get it on Ronaldo. So flood him. They're knackered. Get him out of the game. Break his legs. Do what you need to do. Do you know what I mean? So go back to the Shepherd kind of scenario. It's like, well, nah, don't go for your superstars. You don't need superstars. I revert everybody back to Man United's class of 92. They won everything. Some might argue with us, some United fans, but they were not the world's best players. They were not. They were individually exceptional. But that class of 92, they came together, led by Sir Alex, and they were exceptional. But they were exceptional together. They were a jigsaw piece. They came together. I think I heard Paul Scholes say this one thing once. I don't think, and again, don't quote me on this, but I don't think he had the best relationship with Ruud van Nistelrooy. But Gary Neville once said to him, like, why were you so, like, who was the best person that you could click with like that? And he went, you didn't really have the best of relationships with Ruud van Nistelrooy. But like, he says, listen, let me tell you this. I don't need to like the guy that I'm going to pass the ball to that I know is going to score. But if I give him the ball on the 18-yard box, 9 times out of 10 it's going in. If I give him the ball on the wing, wasted. So I know my job is to receive the ball and it's going there without looking. It's in my feet, it's there. It's in my feet, it's there. It's repetitive. In my feet, it's there. Because where's there? Ruud van Nistelrooy. He's there. And 9 times out of 10, he's going to put it in the back of the net. And that was his job. He knew that. But he weren't a superstar. He was very, very talented. Arguably one of the better central midfielders to come out of England. But yet he wasn't a Ronaldo or a Messi. He wasn't a Pele, a Maradona. He's not, his name has never been at the world's best. If we all said, right, who's the world's best footballer?
It's always strikers, isn't it? It's always the people scoring the goals.
Weirdly today, it's about defence. It's blown my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's traditionally, it has been your strikers and whatnot.
Your star players.
Your key star players. But the reality is, look at what Man United did.
As a team.
As a team, as a squad. And that is what Sir Alex did. Sir Alex played his part, but he recruited from his youth, brought them in. He would create scenarios, but at the moment you were bigger than the club, you were gone.
It's the culture as well. And because he's done it from the foundations, again, like what we were saying, from the family roots at a young age, he's picked the ones and said, like, you get it. You're coming up. You've got because you can. There's obviously natural talent to things, but you can teach the talent, but you can't teach how you're going to be with the rest of your team and how you're going to integrate and the culture.
Yeah,
that's the most important thing.
So, I read David Beckham's statement not long back. His first day at the club, he was introduced to a lady that would look after him as a young lad, and she said to David Beckham's mum, what I can't remember, said, "Don't worry, I'll look after him. I'll be his, work mum if you want." And she did, and David was accustomed to that relationship, and that grew, and that's a team, and it's like Lewis Hamilton and what he had, or now she's back in shit Ferrari. But the point I'm getting is, I think it was last year, the year before, David Beckham's work mum, she died. He's been left Man United for years, but she was still there. And that cut him deep. He will never forget what she did for him. And this comes back down to the bigger picture. She was never a superstar. She was never mentioned anywhere. We'd never even know about that woman. But yet she played a very, very large role in his life that enabled him to be the superstar on the pitch.
I think then the best role of a leader isn't to be the superstar. It's about unlocking the special talent within each individual, within the team, and creating that mindset that instead of one person producing 150%, if everybody in the team can produce 10% more collectively,
yeah,
even just 10%,
compounding,
it compounds across a larger scale.
Yeah.
And rather than one person then feeling burnout and feeling resentment and feeling like they're the one leading the charge on their own.
The red mist
descends. And then from that point on, they've got two choices. They either work harder, which results in more stress, more pain, and generally a lower quality of work at that point, or come into the understanding that as a leader, it's your job to bring out the best of your team, and you'll get a much better result, like you've seen with the Man U of 92, instead of being the one where you want to wear, and you'll get the accolades, but that's why I think the selfish leader is never the one that is ever going to achieve success in life, because they are genuinely doing it they're giving rather than taking, and they've got to have a mission that's bigger than themselves. And I think we've seen that with every great entrepreneur, every great superstar, every great football star, sports star. They have a vision that's bigger than themselves. And I think it's important for everybody that is in a business that hasn't got that, or hasn't got the mindset, that they really need to go and find out what it is because that is going to be so much more powerful in driving the business forward, or driving the team forward in whatever aspect that might be, or driving the family forward, or driving the friendship group forward, where you can all agree on a common goal and use that as the motivation to drive forward, rather than taking it all on your shoulders. And I've been guilty of that. Certainly as a leader, you like I said earlier on when we were talking about stepping out of father's shadow and proving yourself and pushing him to one side, well, and then showing the team that actually I'm the one sort of doing this now. I'm taking all the workload on. I'm putting all the weight on my shoulders. And again, going back to self-reflection, now I think the sort of penny has dropped. The reality is it's best now to look at the team as a wider landscape rather than piling it all on one person's shoulders.
Quick question. Has your dad got a picture in the main entrance when you walk in? Has he got a picture where everybody knows he was the founder?
No.
It's like North Korea. No, it's a good idea. We've got one, like I say, it's featured. The one thing that we've done as a business that we think or thought was really important, not just for the actual business itself, but for our future of the company. The beautiful thing about our business is named Cola. Cody, Tyler, Cola. It's really nice. It's a great touch from our dad. And again, it echoes the point that the reality, and we weren't working in the business at this point, so this is decades ago. And it echoes the point of everything that he hasn't had to say, but that we believe to be true through his actions and from what we've seen, is that actually we know it to be true. This, the lessons that he's taught, the discipline, it wasn't done for nothing. There was actually meaning behind it. And that is the true reasoning behind what he's done.
Who knows that?
Well, we do more than anybody. But I think also the team
it's
as
quite
well.
Inspiring?
It's massively.
But is it shown anywhere?
And this is where we get into, and we will never change the name of the business. And because it means so much to us, as I said, our name means so much to us. But one thing that we did have to do was change some of the branding, the logo, and the slogan. The slogan of the business was, it was the company of excellence, and the logo said CSS, and no one called us CSS, and no one referred to us as CSS. And if you saw CSS if you Google CSS, we don't come up. If you see the CSS company of excellence, you'd go, "Who are you? What do you do?" And know nothing about you.
I love how he's justifying this still right now.
It's because he'll watch it and he knows that it's all going to just end. But it's going to cause a riot.
I told you that.
It needed to be changed. But we've changed it. But the one thing that I said is to keep some of the legacy alive. I think it would be nice to have that sort of staged this is our... And we did a video, didn't we, where we found some really cool recordings of our dad's factory that he built back in the 80s. And again, it's this old sort of really retro footage on a camcorder as he's going round, and it was a real fixer-upper, and he invested all his time, weekends, like all hours of the day, himself, as you can imagine back then, certainly on a limited budget where you built something from nothing.
Yeah.
And that's where the inspiration comes from. And again, doing this podcast, one of the big reasons for it, not only to help others and to shed some light on the mindset surrounding business owners, and that we're not all a bunch of villains who are trying to profit off of the hard work of those unfortunate that are working for us. And again, like I said, even at the start, we don't see it as that, but the inspiration comes from what he's done to build the business up. I think now we want to create and make sure that we don't forget who we are or where we've come from, that even pushing the business forward to the heights that we want to take it to the stars and beyond, that we don't forget that we are still this small family business that was founded in the Black Country with, a shed with one man's dream of building something that he could then leverage his passion for engineering and for making things, and then use it to sustain a life for his family, the team that he brings in and brings into the boat, And like you said, along the way, there's been people that have been made to walk the plank.
It's standard. Name your business that hasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think for us to continue that legacy is something that, again, and it's great having these conversations because it really does drill down on some of the things that as business owners, you get stuck in the day-to-day of running things and the operations and the big tasks that you think are driving the thing forward, but then you forget that some of the emotional sides of the business are as equally important and, again, can rally the team 3x, 4x, 5x than just setting a new goal or target, whereas actually you do a reflection about where we've come from and who we are and what we stand for, and that can rally the team a lot more than just saying here's the target and are we all happy with the target and can we all get there by the end of the quarter, because really, you know, how much emotion are you inciting through writing a number on a board and saying there's your goal?
The reality is your team are going to leave in a heartbeat if they have to. If something happens, they'll leave in a heartbeat. It's harder to leave a culture that is embedded into its own sort of like mission, if that makes sense.
If you feel a part of it and it's become a part of you and that you love the people that you work with and you feel that they're like a family, when things get tough, you wouldn't cut and run.
No.
You'd stay and you think, oh, I've got to grind and get through this. And we've found people like that. And, well, a lot of the people that work for us have that culture to them within the business.
Yeah.
It's just, it's difficult to get there sometimes with some of the people that have been there a while, but we're getting there now. And we've really got a great team that work for us, all with us.
So, a couple of final questions. One, a bit more serious. Are we grateful for how we were treated as children?
Massively. If that didn't happen, and it's like you were saying with taking the punches and you learn from the things that really get your gut wrenching and you think, oh my God. And those are the things that if you never had to deal with any pain and you never had to deal with any stress, you never had to deal with anything like that, you'd just be living in Disneyland. It'd just be the perfect world, and any little thing that comes into your world, which will happen at some point because everyone experiences pain.
Absolutely.
It's obviously going to happen at some point.
Especially an entrepreneur.
Exactly. So to have had that in the past, to have then built us up. So like you're saying, we've got those scars and those war wounds. When we've had, accountants stealing hundreds of thousands of pounds and car crashes that my dad had broke his neck due to stress, passing out all these things. And it affects the whole family. We've had our own as well. That you've built on that, and it means that we're better people and we can take the punches and still get up and keep going.
Grateful?
The chances of us being here are billions upon billions to one. The chances of us being here and having the upbringing that we've had, being born in this country with a family that we had, a loving family, in a household, we were sort of middle class, upper middle class. We had a great head start in life. And to have that opportunity and to squander it by fucking around and not making our dad proud and our family proud and upholding the name and doing good, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. And like I said, those people that are on the boat and the people that deserve it would be an absolute waste. So to have the ability to be able to give back is something that I will be eternally grateful for. And without the upbringing that we had, who knows where we'd be.
The thing is as well, what we've both always said, because, and we've spoke a lot about our dad, but our mum is one of those, again, figures like with David Beckham, that she doesn't get spoke about as much as probably our dad, because he's the one at the forefront pushing. But, without her...
We know who the real boss is.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Exactly. And she's the one that's been the stabilising force throughout the whole family unit. When our dad was going through serious stuff with, people knocking on the door, bailiffs trying to take money. And so she's also, more important.
The women
make us better.
In our lives, they are more important. They are the hub, the heart.
What else is it for?
I think it's quite an interesting. We don't take it for granted, but we share the same respect, the same values. In that, we don't take mum for granted, but we know mum is the linchpin.
Yeah,
we're the noise.
And so with that, we have always said it that we want to be able to get to a point where they've looked after us our entire life, still do to this day. We want to be able to get them to a point where they don't. Our dad doesn't need to work, so he can be there if he wants, do the things that he wants, live life.
Yeah,
he's still young, and that would be a massive, massive goal and mission for us to eventually get to that point where he doesn't need to be there. My mum can stop complaining at him, going, "You keep going to work. You keep."
That's never going to stop,
No, of course, and he probably wants to go anyway sometimes.
Find something else to stress about.
But, that's a real key driver, and that'll be a proud moment.
Do you feel proud?
Immensely, yeah.
100%, yeah.
Well, look, we're going to do this. We're going to do it again because we're going to get the business side of it. So this one wanted to be more about used to, stripping you out, get into nitty gritty of used to, what makes you tick, what gets you fighting, where's your drive, that kind of thing. And then obviously we'll do another one where it's about the business. But a couple of fun ones, just quick fire. Who's the better looking?
I got asked to go on Love Island recently, so I'm going to take that one. Not my own arse, but I feel like that's a yardstick to go with. So, although you got
the audience to do that one.
You got asked to
see what the comments say.
You got asked to do the modelling as a kid, so Cody grew up with the looks for the first quarter of our lives. I was a late bloomer. I was a bit of an ugly kid, so puberty.
Well, let's let the viewers can take the pic.
Yeah,
we'll see you.
Which camera? He's got the good
You
side.
got to do your best, Blue Steel.
That's it.
Who was the better sportsman?
Me. Sorry.
I'd agree on certain sports, but I was better at tennis, I would say.
Okay. Who got the most women?
That's a good question.
I've got a miss, so I've got to say him.
What when you were younger?
No,
Cody was younger. Cody was a numbers man. Sorry to sort of drop you in it.
Yeah.
Cody was. I'm a lot more.
Numbers in.
No, not actual. No. But you played the numbers game. Cody's confidence to go out there and just speak to people is. I bow down. I am in awe. It was brilliant. And for me, I was a lot more reserved. I'm a lot more scared of rejection in that sense. And for me, it's one of those things that I have to have a semblance of connection first of all, whether it's an eye contact or something, but just your ability to just open was legendary.
I was known across Birmingham.
I love it.
No, I wasn't, but
Who's the most likely to moan?
Oh yeah, definitely Tyler.
I think we know this one. Who's the angry one?
Yeah, again.
The episode would prove.
I don't even think we need to answer that one again. The audience will know that one just off this chat.
Who's the fly by the seat of the pants?
Who's the what? Sorry.
Fly by the seat of the pants. Just go do it.
I suppose.
It's me.
It is, but it depends what it is.
Well, go on then, elaborate.
No, I suppose I'll give it him. I was trying to think of one off the top of my head.
Again, we go back to the methodical thinking and the methodical brain, which is definitely not a bad thing. It's just that sort of immediate, I don't know whether it's ADHD or something, but it sees something, go.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of mindset.
Who's the best dressed?
You can judge this one.
Yeah, we'll let the audience audience again.
Are you, who's the most modest?
Oh,
yeah, definitely me. Yeah. You didn't say you, did you?
No, you. Yeah, without any doubt.
Who's got the best sense of humour?
Oh, that's a good one. On par, I'd say.
The thing is, we've grown up, obviously, our whole lives, funnily enough. And I think between each other as well, we've got a very similar sense of humour. But what we always do is we watch films, and I don't know if it's because when we were younger, we'd remember line by line these films, and then we'd rehearse them, or not rehearse, but we kind of quote them back to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously find it
This is
hilarious.
it all the time.
Betweeners, or any Will Ferrell film, or like Eddie and Stepbrother and these things. So we'll probably say something, and then we'll both know exactly where we've just gone with
there's a catalyst, and somebody will say, well, and you
like
immediately flash on, and we look at each other, and we'll just know the exact words that you're thinking.
So we've both got a very similar sense of humour.
So to be fair then, this is an interesting one. Who's got the best chat-up lines?
Don't like chat lines.
I mean,
It must be you if you've got...
who's got the best approach?
Look, I said he went up to them. I never said it worked. It did work. I'm just saying I said it was a numbers game. It was like, we'll try 10 and one of them should say yes. And that's where we got to. But I mean, I think...
You're definitely like, in my earlier life, being refined as well.
Until you've met the lovely Kaylin. Shout out Kaylin. It was absolutely lovely. I don't know whether your string of relationships prior to that was anything anything to shout out about, to be honest.
Hey, listen, we've all got a past, and we'll leave it there. So, the other I was going to ask. I don't know if I want to ask this one because I want to keep it more fun. But who's the best worker?
I suppose you can. It depends.
You're quiet. You wait for him to answer every time.
It's who work. Yeah, it's working. I think we both work equally as hard, but you work better in being more laser focused on probably the things that matter more. So I'm kind of stuck a lot in some of the roles. It's my own fault, and I'm trying to work on that to get myself out of those tasks that I do. But we both work very hard. I'm interested to see what he says. But, in terms of hours, there was a time where you were doing a lot more. I don't know if it's subsided a bit now.
I can latch onto goals quite clearly and use them as motivation. So I can draw motivation from so many different places, whether it's rivalry, competition, my own self-doubt, or my own sort of need to prove or to push or to succeed. So I can find a lot of motivation in so many different areas. And again, coming from a sport background, and certainly in boxing, when you've finally sort of said yes to say that I'm now going to get into the ring with someone and go to war and have that fight, and it's man on man, it's one on one, you have got to go and do everything you can to win. And if you can't draw on that, there's no point in getting in there, because genuinely you'll get outworked, and you have to have the ability to almost find an image, find a goal or something that you can use as energy to then draw on to push forward. So I would say, again, out of the two of us, who's the better worker, I can probably use that fuel better than you can, because I've probably got I've got a high propensity to be able to utilize fuel in a way that I know drives me forward. And it's usually comes from a place of really high levels of self-criticality, of not being good enough, or not that I'm not good enough, but making sure that I reach my potential, potentially coming from the fact that it was wasted at school.
So who's the most resilient?
I'd say it's probably quite equal, because I'll take like everything, but so will Tyler. Anyone can say anything to me. You're a piece of shit. Not like going too far, but by your dad, you're not doing that right. You're rubbish. You're this. You're crap. You're la 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 la. And I've had all that, probably more than you have, but I've never just let that defeat me and go, oh, well, just leave it now. And I've always just continued to just go, right, okay, I'll take that and I'll keep going. I'll take it and keep going and keep going and keep going. But we're both very similar. But it's hard to say, but I'd definitely say we're both very resilient in that, because we were built up like that as kids, it's then followed through. But because I've not been the most academic, especially like again at school and learning. It takes me. I have to read a book like 3 times before the knowledge is absorbed. And like Tyler, you can read
normal.
it once and it's just, you know, he remembers it all.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have to try probably that bit harder. But I'd still say we're both resilient, probably in different ways, but on a sort of even level, I'd say.
Everyone's now going to be sitting there going, what's he going to say?
For the first
I'm wondering
time,
what he's going to say.
100% you. I think absolutely Cody is one of the most resilient people that I've met, because, you know, true resilience is not only sort of facing the adversity and continuing on, getting back on the horse, but it's also doing it through the shit that's being fired at you continuously, even whilst you're on the ground. Whereas I'm a lot more defensive, as we've seen earlier in the episode, and where I'll see red and I will fight back.
Yeah.
Whereas the resilience it takes, certainly as an older brother, to look at their younger brother who is surging forward in certain senses and in others definitely not, but go, I'm going to let him take the reins for now, or on this project, or in this circumstance. And I'm going to take it on the chin, or I'm going to sacrifice on something that I don't necessarily want to sacrifice, if you were to ask me, but then do it and then continue moving forward. That's a true definition of resilience to me that you definitely capture.
That's a fair, very fair answer to that, which perfectly leads on to who's the better leader.
I think there's different elements of it. I suppose we were just finding leader and boss earlier.
Yeah. You said something just there, and you might not know what you said. But are you leading in a way that you don't know you're leading?
I recognised from maybe about 8 years ago, because we always had, no, less than that, maybe even 3-4 years ago, people would always ask, like you said at the start, who's the older brother? And I always knew, obviously, by number, and like you said, experience isn't defined by age, it's defined by the life that you've lived and the experiences you've had. So people would always look at both of us and say, you're older, aren't you? And I go, no, I'm the younger one. And they go, really? And our parents, when we would go out, would always say, Ty, look after your brother. Make sure he doesn't cause chaos or do something silly. And so I always thought that realistically, I was sort of like, I played the older brother role. And that meant that potentially being a better leader, that I was leading him. And then what I came to realise is that without his mindset towards being the older brother and allowing me to flourish and be the best version of myself, then I wouldn't be who I am, which, as we said earlier, is the best thing a leader can do, is inspire the team to be the best version of themselves. And so that is something that, as much as I feel like from a broader team environment, I can inspire through, like you said, being the loudest, taking the work on, leading from the front, and inspiring in that way. I think you're far better at leading by making people feel good about themselves, sometimes at your own detriment, as to what you might want or how you would want things to play out. You would take that step back and sacrifice, again, that resilience that allows others to push. So the dynamic does work really, really, really well, and it complements each other nicely.
Have you ever spoke to each other about that before, as brothers?
No, not really. No.
How does it feel now? You heard it?
No, yeah, it's nice. Yeah, of course, it's lovely to hear. And it's, you know, it's... I have always, I suppose, been like that. And
Gone red.
Yeah. But no, it's nice to hear. And I've always wanted the best for him. And I think he's always wanted the best for me. And we want to try and push things together. And I love it more than anything to... You know, when he was doing his boxing match, and it's like, you know, I'm probably except mum, but I was like loudest, like trying to push, like, yeah, fuck him up tight. And it's like, I want nothing more than for him to succeed. And even going back further, when we were really young, we'd play like games and like, you know, GameCube or whatever it was, or I'd say we'd play, but I'd always like watching him play as a kid and watching him like do well in the game. I don't really know why that's the case, but
You're championing his success.
yeah.
And that's what brothers do. But like Steve and I've always thought he was just jealous of me because he was constantly angry and wanted to have a go. And it was at the moment you go, hey, listen, you're doing pretty good actually. And then the aggression stops and you realise, oh, all he wanted was the recognition that the hard work is actually been appreciated.
Yeah.
I think that's what I really enjoyed about this conversation is it got to know you more both on a personal level. In fact, actually, you've learnt more about yourselves than you probably have realised.
There you go, yeah.
That's been quite interesting to see and witness.
Yeah. No, it's been really interesting.
Summarises the importance of having the conversations. Because a lot of people, and the beauty of podcasting, the beauty of sitting down with like-minded people and having the conversation about these things is, as I said, the emotion of and the gravity and weight of these conversations that are had, which aren't had usually, move the needle so much further and so much faster than the arbitrary crap and the mundane that people get caught up in as being the most important thing in their lives, the day-to-day, the financials, the numbers, the targets, the savings. Whereas actually understanding why we do things and who we do them for will give you that fuel to push so much further and so much faster. So
Yeah. I mean,
very valuable conversation and really, really important for us to keep on keeping on.
it's one of those pillars that you were saying, wasn't it? The football, you know, communication.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have won the league without it. Well, I don't know. You might have
We're gonna end on this conversation, this question, because then I want to get you back down for the business chat, and we're going to talk about the brothers in business, and I want to know, how comfortable are you looking at each other as brothers in the eye and giving each other a compliment?
Oh, yeah, me, very, very confident. You know,
That comes as no surprise.
yeah.
Go on then.
Do you want one?
You can fire away.
No, the way that you've made, especially on me, you know, you've become like a wise brother in the things that you've learned and you push forward, and I learn from you every single day, and how you approach your work and how you approach your family and how you approach, you know, everything like that. That I always take that on board, and I've learned massive amounts from it whenever we have the little conversations in the car, and it always seems, you know, like it's always, not maybe had one on the way up, but you know, I always do take it on board, and I always try and use it to grow. Might not always seem that way just from the off, but I always do. And I think that because of the relationship we've got, if I rewind just 12 months ago, I've improved tenfold on what I was just 12 months ago because of the relationship we've got and the things I've learned from you.
Thank you very much. I think I recognise that every strength has a weakness, and an equal and opposite weakness has a strength, and I've identified that any of my weaknesses are backed up by your strengths, and that's probably what helps certainly us as a business and certainly us as brothers achieve far more than the average people who are just working for somebody that they don't know or that they don't care about. And it just goes to show that we can still fight, we can still fall out, we can still argue and bicker and point fault at each other, but it's not done through a sense of trying to put the other person down. It's purely done through a sense of bringing each other up. And again, like you said, your strengths are my weaknesses and vice versa, and it wouldn't have it any other way. It works nicely.
There you go.
And that, for me, is the foundation of the future of this business. that should never be forgotten either. The fact that we can actually do this, have the conversation, and actually be honest about each other. Tell each other you're a dick when you're a dick, but you're great when you're great. I think that's important.
Sure. Have you done this with your brother? We need to get him on. turn the tables.
Imagine there'll be chairs flying everywhere.
We'll have to pick teams. It'll usually be one of
Blue corner, the red corner.
No, we'll definitely do it again.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I think this has been a great part 1 to get to know you guys. And I think part 2 is going to be super, super exciting when we now learn about the business and what the brothers have done to the legacy that your dad created.
Lovely.
Definitely.
Thanks for the chat.
Thanks for coming out.
Appreciate your time, man.